get into our first segment. Show them the money.
Show them the door.
So we're going to start off here with show them the money. Here recently, our savior of Indiana Fever basketball.
No, don't stop there.
The savior of the WNBA itself.
Don't even stop there.
The savior of all white girls in America.
No.
No?
I'll just say women's sports in general.
Okay, we'll go with that one. Women's sports in general. Caitlin Clark wins the Times Athlete of the Year.
You can't argue with that.
I mean, she's phenomenal. So, I found a quote, a December 3rd article from Dana Hunsinger, Benbow, which that's a funny last name, Benbow, of Indianapolis Star. The quote says, total TV viewership due to Clark is up 300%, and 45% of total broadcast value came from Fever games.
That's crazy.
And then finally, the league's merchandise sales catapulted 500% with Clark ranking number 1.
Yep.
Number 2 was Angel Reese, which... The other thing that I would like to mention with Caitlin Clark, obviously, is that last year, 2024, she won the Rookie of the Year, and it was almost unanimous, but one voter voted for Angel Reese.
Which should not have happened.
I don't know.
But here's the thing. Nobody, and I'm not saying this to be negative on the WNBA. I'm really not. But you watch the product they were producing, and people were not interested. I mean, they were losing millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars every single year. They were subsidized by the NBA, so that's why they were able to stay in play. But when you look at the stadiums, empty. I mean, there was like maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people there. When you're talking about a $15,000, $16,000, $70,000 or 1,000 people stadium, you're not. That's not good numbers. Mm-hmm. And then now you go to where Caitlin Clark was actually forcing teams to go to bigger stadiums because they were able to sell more tickets.
Yeah.
Now I went to a couple, maybe just one. I think just one Fever game, but it was sold out, and the crowd was into it. I mean, it was loud. It was a ruckus place, and you can't say it's any other reason than her. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, even when they have away games, you'll have these teams that are doing their, overall attendance has been rising up a little bit, but when she goes to these cities, all of a sudden they're sold out. And it's the Caitlin Clark effect. Yeah. Me and you were talking before we started the podcast, like, Caitlin Clark's impact reminds me, it gives me shades of when Magic Johnson entered the league. And obviously Magic Johnson, he had his Larry Bird over in the East, and that's kind of like what Angel Reese is to Caitlin Clark. It's kind of like this feud, and nowadays everyone wants to be polite, so they wouldn't say that they're enemies. They wouldn't say that that's my rival or anything like that. I think it's very obvious that Angel Reese is a little jealous of all the attention Caitlin Clark is getting.
Extremely jealous.
But what they have going on right now, the Angel Reese versus the Caitlin Clark, which she's right over in Chicago, and obviously Caitlin Clark's here in Indianapolis. They're right next to each other. I think that's going to be a rivalry that can potentially give the WNBA that push to try and get it to where, they don't need the NBA to be propping it up anymore. They can do it on their own. They can, build their own following
and that pays players better. I mean, it does lots of different things for them to where it makes people want women to go play.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm most. Yeah. That's the impact I hope to see most is the participation of basketball with female youth increasing, and I think this is something that could potentially do that. I mean, everywhere you look, any girl that loves basketball has a Clark jersey. Yep. And I love it a lot. So. Show them the money to Caitlin Clark. Congratulations on your Times Athlete of the Year.
Yes, that is awesome. And you were just on a show with David Letterman. It hasn't come out yet. They went to Long's Bakery, right over here, actually, and did a little episode there. So, yeah, I'm sure it's one of his shows that's on My Next Guest Is or something like that. I have a very controversial show him the door, and that's why I'm wearing my Cubs shirt, because it's baseball related. So I'm going to show him the door to the New York Mets.
Ooh.
Now listen, I want to explain kind of what's going on here. So if you haven't seen it, Juan Soto, who played for the Yankees, has now signed a new contract with the New York Mets. 15 years.
15
years. Let me say that one more time. 15 years. $765 million.
Sheesh.
The largest sports contract in the history of sports. 15 years, 765, so a little over $50 million a year. Okay, now when you spread it out, $50 million a year, you have other players that have done that. I think Steph Curry's been in that category. LeBron's been in that category. I'm sure there's other baseball players. I mean, Judge might even be in that category. But that's the part that I struggle with. And I just, when that contract is up, yes, there's contingencies in it. Okay, he can get out after 5 years. They can get out if they pay him so much over a certain amount of years, and so on and so forth. But let's just say that he stays the full 15 years. That means he will be 41 years old when that contract's over.
Old man.
Now, I understand that baseball, it's got a wear and tear in your body, but it's not like a football where you can play to your 41 because you're getting hit every single play. In this case, I mean, it's just, your body just wears down. You can't keep playing any sport, really, when you're after that age. It just makes it much more difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. But to commit yourself to a guy who is, yes, he's a great defender, great baseball player all around. He's a great defender. He can hit really well. He is intimidating when he gets up in the batting box. And so when people don't really want to pitch to him, I understand this. But when you have committed to 15 years to a player, you know he's going to get hurt. You know he's going to sit out games. You know he's going to... I mean, the injuries by themselves are going to be a problem because that's the way it is for any baseball player. And you're committing that amount of money every single year to where you cannot get that out of your cap. I mean, that's you're committed.
Yeah.
And I believe it said that his deal is 100% guaranteed.
100% guaranteed.
I'll have to check it, and you fact check me, but I'm pretty sure that's what it said.
That's crazy.
So I don't know. I know you're not huge into baseball, but am I overreacting?
Well, here's what I'll say. I did see something when this contract came out that said the Pittsburgh Penguins have not committed over $760 million. Or Pirates, my bad. We're talking baseball. The Pittsburgh Pirates have not paid its players in the last 7 years over $750 million.
So their total team,
their entire
in 7
team,
years has not kept over $765 million.
So, like, the one thing that this kind of screams out at me is, like, you know, a New York Mets must be a larger market that can afford this type of thing.
For sure.
But it's just ridiculous how, I guess, unbalanced the league can be when you have a Pirates team. That's, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. Pirates aren't a bad team.
Not bad.
They're not bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
But they haven't paid $750 million for their entire squad in the past 7 years, like combined. So that means last year plus the year before that plus all of that up to $750 million, and you just guaranteed this one player $750 million.
Yep.
Like, to me, that's just, you know, the power scales of the MLB.
The challenge I have,
crazy.
And I don't want to stay on this point because we got other things we got to cover. But I'm going to say this: there are 11 people on that field, so that means he has to have 10 other players that are at least decent enough to continue. They got to hit. They got to get on base. They got to score.
They got to be cheap.
But then the other part is you're not even factoring the fact that you have to have 5 rotating pitchers and a bullpen that can keep you in games. So one individual, yes, might get you 40 home runs, 120 RBIs every season, but if you don't pitch well, if you don't have a bullpen to back him up, and you don't have other players to produce, one individual to put all that pressure on him, and that's the other thing. I've seen big contracts, and I've seen what they do to people. Last time there was a big contract in baseball, I'm pretty sure it was Aaron Judge, and he struggled for the first half of the season. It's a lot of pressure on these players. So, I don't know. Maybe Juan Soto is not that guy, and he's going to be able to keep his head together, but goodness gracious. I saw it, and I'm like, I'm really glad. I would be very angry if the Cubs would have gone out there and done that. Even how good of a player he is, I wouldn't want it. Wouldn't want it.
15 years for $765 million. Show them the door to the Mets.
Get them out. Yep. And I hope they never win a championship just to prove them right.
Wow.
And it's New York. Nobody wants New York to win except the New York fans.
Yeah, I can agree with that one.